I don't think we handled Central Hudson appropriately. And I'm going to repeat this again. We did not stand up to utility. I've reached out to New Paltz, Woodstock, Saugerties, and asked them what they did. Some of those villages gave up. They stood on top of the hill and they cried and they didn't get anywhere and they stopped. But other than villages actually made progress. Saugerties, a little bit different issue, but Saugerties got a lot more out of the utility company for the revitalization of their treescapes than we did, because they stood stronger. We need to do that. We need to protect our asset that has been mentioned here. And the only way we're going to protect that is to be strong and make it an asset that we protect. Thank you.
So there was some mention of the successes of some other Hudson Valley municipalities during this process, and particularly mentioned were New Paltz, Woodstock, and Saugerties. I know that Gary, at the candidate forum, you had mentioned that you reached out to a number of these communities, and I'd like to start with New Paltz, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about, who you talked to there and what their, what the success are that we might have missed out on that you heard about.
Okay, so in New Paltz, I did speak to a village trustee. In fact, I don't remember his name now. I apologize for that. But they did have an extensive conversation with the utility company on the removal of the trees or the tree trimming process. They were not successful in being able to accomplish anything with the utility company. But they look forward to doing more with them in the future to be able to curb the amount of tree pruning process that takes place during that time. And they encouraged us to continue conversations with them as the ongoing process.
Okay. So I subsequently reached out to the Village of New Paltz Mayor, Tim Rogers, and he described their Central Hudson, their trimming process to be rather bizarre, was the word he used, in the Village of New Paltz. He explained to me that they had met with Central Hudson, but confirmed that the utility had right away, and the village, there was little they could do to stop the trimming. He then referred me to New Paltz Town Supervisor Neil Batez, who I also talked to. He is I don't know if he's a chair, but he's on the village tree committee. He's a village resident, serves as the town supervisor. And interestingly enough, he stated that his understanding was that Rhinebeck is something to shoot for when dealing with Central Hudson, and he heard that we had a really good working relationship with Central Hudson. And he felt that they had little luck so far, but after hearing about our success, he's scheduled a meeting with the Central Hudson Forester to see if they can model what we did here by opening the dialogue. So next, let's talk about Woodstock. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you found there.
Woodstock too, I did speak to the mayor of Woodstock. They had no success. And quite frankly, his term was, we stood at the top of the hill and waved our arms and were unsuccessful and gave in. And that's where the conversation stopped with Woodstock. He also encouraged us to reach out and to work collaboratively with them and and hopefully to form an organization that could deal with Central Hudson on a more regular basis to come up with a standard for the pruning of the trees. And that was the end of that conversation. I told him I would follow up with him after the result of our process was completed.
Okay, so that was the mayor of Woodstock?
Yes.
Okay. I could be wrong, but I don't believe there is a village or a mayor of Woodstock, but I did speak.
His title, yes,
Okay. I did speak with the town of Woodstock supervisor, Jeremy Wilbur. He described his town's relationship with Central Hudson as collaborative. He said they approached Central Hudson with a quiet voice, which at times included begging and pleading. I explained to him that the town of Woodstock was referenced in our discussion as a municipality that might have been more successful in negotiating with Central Hudson, and he responded that that is absolutely false. He explained that Central Hudson is regulated by the Public Service Commission and that there's little that a municipality can do beyond asking them to be careful and selective and accommodating as possible to our residents. He offered to share that same story with any of our constituents if they'd like to call him. So, lastly, let's talk about Saugerties. So,
Saugerties, I was not able to reach anybody on the board. I did talk with village residents and Central Hudson Utilities, Central Hudson members for Saugerties, and they said they were able to come forward with a plan that enabled them to obtain more trees and larger trees as part of their replanting, and they thought it was a very successful dialogue with the utility company, and were pleased with the results that they had.
Okay. I spoke with Village of Saugerties Mayor William Murphy, and he agreed. What he told me their relationship with Central Hudson is that they agreed with Central Hudson to plant shorter trees under the wires, so a little different than the desire to preserve the canopy that we have here. And he told me that they have no formal agreement, just dialogue, that they work well with Central Hudson. He further said that their tree commission was started about 4 years ago, and that they used the Village of Rhinebeck tree code to write their tree codes, and that's how they started their tree commission. One thing he did talk about was the inventory that was completed by a Cornell work-study student, so maybe that's something we can look into.